Now at 5, vaping revelation, the latest on that link that scientists say may explain that mysterious rash of lung illnesses. This days after a KGW investigation dug into what you're really vaping and the impact here in Oregon.
It was pretty bad.
It was pretty bad. Was it nice to see Wilson the dog?
Yeah.
The incredible story of a local toddler lost in the woods and the stranger who brought her home. Plus, with impeachment hearings set to start this week, President Trump takes aim at testimonies that haven't happened yet.
It's all about the transcript. They're having people. I never even heard of some of these people.
Meanwhile, something he said earns this reaction from Joe Biden.
You serious? Whoa.
And later, the Portland man running a marathon inside to help kids struggling to learn.
If they start losing that confidence early, we're in trouble.
The news at 5 starts now.
This is KGW News at 5.
Good evening, everybody. We're going to start with that major breakthrough in the vaping investigation. Scientists are zeroing in on a synthetic form of vitamin E that it turns out can cause serious damage when inhaled. This days after our investigative team tested products sold locally, and researchers flagged more concerns about what people are actually putting into their lungs. KGW's Art Edwards has been following this development, and he joins us live now. Art?
Maggie, that possible breakthrough was announced as the number of those stricken by vaping-related sickness climbed to more than 2,000 in 49 states, with 39 deaths, including 2 right here in Oregon. Now, researchers discovered the clue in the residue left in lungs by e-cigarettes, not in the vapor itself. Vitamin E acetate is what's been left behind. It's described as a honey-like substance, is an additive in cosmetics and some vaping products, particularly those with THC bought off the street. Now, researchers tested 29 patients with vaping illness from 10 states. All of them had vitamin E acetate in their lung fluid. 23 also had evidence of THC.
Vitamin E acetate, when it travels into the lung and touches the airways of the lung, that could trigger inflammation in the lung, which is basically like a fire starting in the lung that's difficult to extinguish.
Now, here in Oregon, the oil is tested for a very specific list of chemicals and pesticides as mandated by the state. But then once those cartridges are filled with oil, they aren't tested again. The director of a lab that we worked with to test some of those cartridges pointed out that there is a possibility for the oil to interact with the metal from the cartridge. There are just a lot of different factors that are going on with this outbreak right now. Now, doctors that did discover the vitamin E connection say that it is a step in the right direction, but more tests need to be done to see what else may be involved in making people sick. Maggie?
All right, Art Edwards with that update. Art, thank you. And once again, our KGW investigative team dug into what's really in products sold locally, and they talked to a teenager who almost died from that frightening lung disease. See the story for yourself at kgw.com. In the meantime, moving on tonight, Cider Riot, a popular hangout for local left-wing activists, is closing tonight. And at the same time, a judge just made a ruling on a lawsuit that the bar's owner filed against a far-right leader. So let's back up here. Cider Riot made headlines last May Day, you may remember, as the site of a brawl between left and right-wing groups. But the owner has said the closure is a business decision that has nothing to do with that fight. The bar is holding a closing party tonight at 7. Yesterday, a judge ruled that a $1 million lawsuit against Patriot Prayer leader Joey Gibson can continue after Gibson tried to stop it. The owner right there of Cider Riot claims the fight involving Gibson's group in May caused him to lose business. Well, a 2-year-old girl is safe after getting lost in the woods in Malala, and it's all thanks to a group of volunteers and animals who saved the day. Iris, right there, was with her grandmother and her sister Thursday morning walking through the Malala River recreation area. Suddenly, the little toddler started running, and her grandmother lost sight of her. She flagged down strangers who called 911. Clackamas County Sheriff's deputies launched a search, and volunteers stepped in too. That includes Tammy Stevens, there she is, who was there with her horse and her 2 Australian shepherds. Tammy knows the area, and she went off on her own. Suddenly, she heard Iris whimpering from the steep incline above the trail, and her dog Wilson, that's Wilson there, raced up to find the toddler, followed closely by Tammy.
I just followed Wilson, and he was, laying with his little front paws on her lap. She had her little hand on him, and she's crying, just sobbing, and oh God, it was best moment of my life, truly.
It was pretty bad.
It was pretty bad. Was it nice to see Wilson the dog?
Yeah.
That make you know you had been found?
Yeah.
Yeah, Wilson, the hero dog. Iris was missing, all told, for a little more than 2 hours, and her grandmother says she is so grateful for everyone who helped bring her home. All right, turning to weather now. It was a pretty gray fall day out there, and we actually saw our first measurable rain this month. Am I right, meteorologist Joe Ranieri?
Exactly right. Only 1/10 of an inch, but I tell you what, we've been absolutely spoiled the last couple of weeks with all this sunshine. So even a little bit of 1/10 of an inch, I think, maybe caught some people off guard. And of course, it was the rainiest day so far this month and the wettest day we've seen since late October. In fact, even around October 22nd was the last time we saw this amount of rain. Again, not a lot, but something we really needed to see. And if you have any outdoor plans tonight, we are going to be seeing kind of some thick cloud cover, but we're basically done with seeing any rain out there. For the most part, if you're traveling north of Portland, you'll be seeing more showers. Maybe you're going to be taking a road trip up north into the Seattle area. That's where most of the showers are going to be heading into the rest of your Saturday night. So how much rain did we see? Again, not a whole lot, and is basically throughout the northern part of the metro area, northern part of the valley. 1/10 of an inch. Astoria saw just about 1/4 of an inch of rain, and heading into tomorrow, we're going to be seeing a return of quite a bit of sunshine. You can see some of the watches and warnings. Even though we saw a little bit of some rain that usually helps our air quality, we're still going to be under an air stagnation advisory until Tuesday afternoon, up and down the I-5 corridor and through parts of the Columbia River Gorge. I'll talk more about what you can expect to see for Sunday and how much more rain we could be seeing heading into the later part of the work week.
All right, Joe, thank you.
What the historians say, the only thing you should expect about impeachment is the unexpected.
That is what Oregon Senator Ron Wyden says when asked what he thinks will happen next in the impeachment inquiry into President Trump. Of course, next week, House lawmakers will start holding public hearings with witnesses. And we talked to the senator today about this new phase of the investigation.
Public hearings, very often, it can be a question that will expose something nobody had ever thought of. Well, I think the initial witnesses in particular are going to be very key because it appears they have firsthand evidence to discuss with respect to what's really at issue. And what's at issue is whether the president put his interest before the country's.
Wyden noted if the House votes on articles of impeachment, he will become a juror for the president's trial as a member of the Senate. And he says the bottom line is that both the president and members of Congress have taken an oath to uphold the Constitution and not downplay the facts. And with those public impeachment hearings looming, President Trump says he will, quote, probably release the transcript of a second call between himself and the Ukrainian president next week. Meantime, Democrats hoping to replace him in the White House are out on the campaign trail this weekend. Here's NBC's Chris Malone.
With public impeachment hearings set to begin this week, President Trump left Washington for a friendlier crowd.
President Trump and the First Lady in attendance today.
Attending a college football game in Alabama where his public approval rating is highest. But even with Washington in his rear view, the inquiry consuming his presidency and the government officials who have raised red flags over his interactions with Ukraine are clearly at the top of his mind.
It's all about the transcript. They're having people. I never even heard of some of these people. I don't know who they are.
Meanwhile, the Democrats hoping to unseat Trump next November are out in important early voting states. In New Hampshire, former Vice President Joe Biden seemed genuinely surprised to learn Trump is considering attending Russia's May Day celebration in Moscow next year.
Mr. Vice President, what do you think of the idea of President Trump going to Moscow for the May Day parade?
Are you serious?
He's been invited and he says he's considering it.
You're kidding me. Whoa.
Sir, House Republicans want your son Hunter.
Are you joking?
No.
Democrats learned Friday that former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg might jump into their race. New Jersey Senator Cory Booker says it shows the contest is still wide open.
I think it's clear from the polling that most Democrats are far from making up their mind, and there's a long way to go in this race.
The first votes will be cast in less than 90 days. Chris Pallone, NBC News.
All right, switching gears, a local man has made it his mission to help kids with dyslexia. And today, as you can probably tell, he did it in a unique way. KGW's John Goodwin talked to Jared Blank, a runner who's been in their shoes.
If you bounced out of bed this morning and went for a run,
Oh, that's awesome.
congrats on the dedication.
So we're at 11 miles.
If you ran a marathon,
My fastest is right around 3:02, I think.
now that's impressive.
Today, a little bit longer than that.
But if you decided to get up today and run a marathon on a treadmill in the middle of the Oregon Convention Center,
Just getting out there and moving is fun.
then your name is Jared Blank.
The Great Marathon Challenge.
On Saturday morning, he was the main spectacle in the middle of the annual International Dyslexia Conference.
It's probably like an art museum a little bit.
Right around 9 a.m., he hopped on a treadmill and ran a full marathon, raising money to help kids around the world with dyslexia.
Donate here at the table.
And it's not a thing that affects intelligence, but if they start losing that confidence early, we're in trouble. We're going to lose them.
This is the organization's 70th anniversary, so Jared set a high bar, racing towards a $70,000 goal.
Trying.
But he runs for an even different reason.
I was fortunate to have support, but even with support, I know how hard it is, and so I imagine a world without support, it just gets that much harder.
Jared himself has had dyslexia for most of his life.
So I was diagnosed when I was 5,
As a kid, running was his way to deal with the frustration of school and life.
and now I found community in it. I found goals.
The Oregon native was told he probably wouldn't graduate from high school, but he did, and then went on to get 2 degrees. So his perspective definitely has legs.
You know, we think of just education as being in the classroom, but this is like bringing movement to the whole thing.
In Portland, John Goodwin, KGW News.
Man, good for him. So this morning, Jared finished with a time of 4 hours and 1 minute. And so far, he's raised more than $2,000 of his $70,000 goal. If you'd like to give, we'll post a link at kgw.com. All right, still ahead tonight, hitting some unusual traffic snarls in Portland this weekend. Well, how long the I-5 ramp to the Fremont Bridge will be closed. That's coming up.